Before you said about Washington's friend and the dancing, you said no touchy-feely. So you've continued that in your books. No sex or no real sex or violence.
Well, I never felt I'm not approved. And I read it, you know, in fact, I wrote 49 Shades of Grey. So sad. It's like with Victor Borger. You remember him, the comedian, to be honest. He said, my father invented a wonderful soda, and it was delicious, but he said it never went anywhere. He called it Six Up. So, it's not, but Alfred Hitchcock never used on-camera sex. And his scary movies are still classics. The 17 seconds from Psycho are still considered, still voted, the scariest film segment ever filmed.
Which 17 seconds?
The shower scene. The shower. You never see her naked, you see a silhouette. You never see the body stabbed.
No, the knife never, they had actually built, they built this fake torso that was going to explode blood. They didn't use it. And then the knife never hit her.
And what you see is the blood running down.
Right, Hershey's syrup.
Yeah, okay. But the point is, I remember screaming when I saw that. But he never needed it. In another one, that your hands are coming at her, and she's saying, "Our Father, which art in heaven," and you see the rope go around her neck, and then her foot coming out of a garbage can. And I thought, that's kind of the way I want to write. It was never a case of, I won't be sexy or I won't. It's just that I thought, I want to give the impression of really scary. And I don't have to go in the bedroom. I've always said that the sexiest lines written in the 20th century, in Gone with the Wind, "You'll not shut me out of your bedroom tonight, my dear." That's sexier than a lot of the touchy-feely. Everybody knows how to do it, for God's sake.
Okay. I know that not only some true crime things, but other books inspired you. Daphne du Maurier, right? Rebecca.
Oh, Rebecca.
As I read, yes, and that was.
And that was another one where I said she manages to give that overall sense of something terrible is going to happen. And I reread that book, which I had loved, of course, and I wrote the first paragraph and the last paragraph of every chapter and did a synopsis of what had happened in between to show how she was building that terror that you feel. And you realize that you never know her first name in that book. The housekeeper calls her Mrs. DeWinter. The woman she was companion for her called her you. And the husband calls her darling. You never know her name. And you can read that book and not realize you don't know her name.
And that's which book of yours, though, that you...
In the Rebecca, I think it was maybe I was doing Remember Me, where I wanted to build a sense of terror. And of course it was nothing like that, or the plot was nothing like, but it was the way the terror was being
Well, I think that's an interesting thing, that what you can learn from other books and reading and all of that is how you can take something and make it your own.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, so, not, you know, you don't plagiarize.
No, I didn't.
But,
no,
but I mean, when you're talking, you don't lift a paragraph and think, well, that looks good in my book too.
No.
But the sense of building terror that is so intriguing. Well, and the way some people do it so well.
Well, you were saying you were taking the beginnings and endings of chapters, and so you were using it as beginning and endings of your way to instill your.
No, I was just studying.
Oh, you were seeing how it was done.
How it was done, and what she said in that chapter. In this chapter, the gal is, Mrs. De Winter, is asserting herself a bit. She says to the maid, the day after party, they're serving, because the housekeeper, of course, was her enemy, said, "Why are we serving leftover food?" And she said, well, whatever the housekeeper's name was, she said, "There is enough waste of food in this house. Take this away and bring us a different lunch." Another time she says to the maid, "Why are there dead flowers in my husband's office? Get rid of them and don't let it happen again." So you see her starting to assert herself and feeling her own space, at the same time that the problem starts, the body is found in the boat.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the book, and I can never think of the book without the movie, without the Hitchcock.
Oh, the movie was wonderful.
Which is great. You said before, and we didn't finish it, so your process in writing is you find something usually that is inspiring to you, and you take the DNA, something, and you ask your particular questions about it. And then do you start to, do you write about your story? Do you envision your story? Do you just start writing?
Where is it going to be set?
Mm-hmm.
Now, last year, the lost years, Michael said, "I would love to see you have a biblical background, a letter written by Christ." I said, "Oh, come on, Michael, you're crazy. I can't set that against a murder mystery. It would seem irreverent, it would seem this." But I kept coming back and coming back. Well, Christ was a well-educated Jewish child. They went to temple 3 times a day, the Jewish children. At 12, he was preaching in the temple over Passover. And I thought, who would he have written a letter to? Well, in the Psalms on Palm Sunday, they say Joseph of Arimathea, a righteous man and a secret disciple of Christ, had the courage to go to Pontius Pilate and ask for the body to bury in his own new tomb. The courage to go. It was not popular to go, and he's proclaimed as a disciple of Christ. And I thought, if Christ was to write to anyone, he might very well anticipate Joseph's kindness, and he had been a secret disciple, and write him, I don't quote the letter, simply saying, "Thank you for your kindness that you extended in my lifetime." And then in the preface of that book, in the 4th century, the Pope was going to have it destroyed. There was too much controversy, and someone stole it. One of the cardinals said, "This cannot be destroyed." And he gave it to a monk and said, "Hide it in the monastery." And it disappeared for 700 years until this story began. And then go into it. And I felt I was able to tell the story without in any way making a religious object become a weapon, or other than the way I guess I wanted it.
I have 2 questions. Well, one, so you took a suggestion from your editor. By the way, Michael Korda, who is your editor, when he sent me he edited your pages and he sent them to me. I thought somebody was making it up that it was Michael Korda. Because Michael Korda is this legendary, editor,
40
Hollywood
years
figure.
with him. Next year is 40 years. And I just said, Michael, I asked Carolyn, the publisher, the president, the whole head of Simon & Schuster, I said, Michael is 5 years younger than I. However, he was at Simon & Schuster when I went there. Are we the 2 oldest living employees? Michael only edits now David McCullough, Henry Kissinger, and me. Because he's writing his own books on Lee, he wrote on Eisenhower, on Grant. He's been doing nonfiction on major historical figures.
Yeah. So, okay, so you took that suggestion from him, and so you said then a sense of place, but you don't sort of write out or get us, sort of plot out where you may be going. You just follow.
Oh, I write suppose this and suppose that. And who are the people who are in it? Where am I setting it? And I have said in New Jersey, I've said in New York, I've said in Connecticut, I've said in Minnesota, because I had property out there at one time and I went back and forth. I've said at Cape Cod several times. I prefer places that I've been. I said in Washington. I did a book set there, and that was funny because I phoned the White House to ask, do the waiters wear gloves at a state dinner? And they said, yes. Wait a minute. They went to the protocol person. It depends on the First Lady. If she chooses to have. Some of them are very formal. You know, they will have very formal parties, state dinners. I've been lucky enough to be at 3 of them now.
Do they have gloves?
And I forget. By then I had written the book. It was okay.
Didn't matter.
I didn't need to know. But when I was reading George W. Bush's bio, he told a story about Putin, and Putin was out at the ranch, his ranch, and he said, I introduced him to my dog Barney, and he said, not many people like Barney, but I love Barney. And he said, Chairman Putin said nothing. Then when I was over at his Dachau in Russia, he said, I want to show you something. And he took me across the field to the kennels, and he opened the door, and 2 big hounds came running out, and Putin said, they are bigger, smarter, and faster. And when I read that in his book, I thought, I heard that story from the horse's mouth, sitting next to him at a White House dinner.
And it was true. And it was real. I'm going to take a few questions for Mary from the audience before we end this. Yes?
I never heard the end about the George Washington book and the title. Has the title changed?
Yes, well, 10 years ago, the Mount Vernon Historical Association wrote a letter to me, a direct descendant of George Washington's brother, because he never had his own issue, had heard me joke about my first book. She dug up a copy of it, and she brought it to the Historical Association, and she said, from everything we know in the family, this is historically accurate, because I take the liberty of what they said to each other. But if there was a luncheon at Mount Vernon on August 2nd, that luncheon occurred, and these were the people who were
That's
at
kind
it.
of fun to invent the dialogue.
But
Right?
what they,
I mean,
what they,
what they, you know, I mean, like to have
and
the
then I
thing that's-
added a few letters,
Yeah.
and anyhow, she said it's historically accurate. They offered me $1,000 for it. And actually, I didn't get around to answering for almost a year, and they wrote again. And then I said to Michael Gordon, Michael, I know that you knew I had published a book before, and I know you never read it. But I said, I just want you to know that certain other people think it's worth publishing, and they are going to publish it. And I said, I'm changing the stupid title of Aspire to the Heavens to Mount Vernon Love Story. He said, oh, Mary, I know I never read that book. I have a copy of it around here somewhere. So the next day he called me. I love the book. We will co-publish it with Mount Vernon. We will have paintings scattered through it from Mount Vernon. Will you take $1 million for it? I said, yes.
You know, when Mary signs your book, she's going to give you just this tiny little bit of her incredible chutzpah, you know, and right, a little bit of that. You know, you just talked about praise the Jews, so I think chutzpah you get, and you've been in New York long enough. But another question here. Yes.
So after writing so many books, do you still find any part of the process? What do you find is the most difficult part of the process for you?
The beginning, the first 50 pages. Sometimes I write 4 months and throw them all out and say I have to start again. we all feel the same way. I'm in a writers group. We meet on the first Tuesday of the month, and maybe 4 or 6 of the 8 or 10 of us, Nelson DeMille, Susan Isaacs, Justin Scott, who writes, with Corey Cussler now, Linda Fairstein, Carol, myself, Harlan Coben. So we are a group of successful writers, but we all agree the same thing. Starting again is tough, and then when you finish, you only hope the baby has fingers and toes. You never say, oh boy, I've written a masterpiece, by God. No, you just don't. You've told the best story you can and hope that other people will find it a good story. I'm very glad that if someone says, I like this one better than that one, and someone else gives me a totally different, that's fine. A plot will sort of hit you more than another plot, sure. A character you get caught up in maybe more than another, but as long as you feel you had a good read and you enjoyed the book, then, I feel I've done my job. I love it if someone says, I read your darn book till 4 in the morning, and I was exhausted the next day. I say that's the biggest compliment you can give me. That's what I want to hear.
I just want to tell you that, Mary had a middle chapter in this serial novel, and it's written by 20 different writers, many of whom you know, and I just gave people little assignments, and they just had one little thing to carry the plot forward. But what happened in Mary's chapter that was astonishing is that the detective and his daughter, for the first time, you're like halfway into this book, it's a whole story about the detective and his daughter. And I'm not just blowing smoke up here, you know what. I got to this and I was so
enchanted.
No, I was so happy because nobody had humanized the guy. They'd all advanced the plot. And this stopped, and he and his daughter go to the school rehearsal of the play, and the father buys pizza for her and all her friends. But the plot's still there. Mary's still aware of the things that have to happen. I say that to students, you can take those little side trips, as long as you keep us aware of there's something scary out there. But all of a sudden, you'll see it when you read this book, that there's just this moment when you go, oh, he's a real person.
Well, I had fun doing it because he picks his daughter up at his divorced wife's house, and her boyfriend is there, whom he can't stand. So there's stuff going on between them. And it was just fun to do it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, I was not part of the assignment. I didn't say humanize the guy. I just said, here you go, this is your thing. And it just took this whole other, so it's a great moment in the book. One more question, and then if there is one more question, because otherwise, is there one more back here? No, okay, all right. Okay, sir.
Do you ever have the urge to write short stories?
Again, you mean short stories? You have the urge to write them again, or you can see we have 3
Do
collections.
I was looking at short stories that I published in 1960 today, and I have almost forgotten them because I was looking specifically for 2, and the pages are tattered, the magazines are falling apart. But I was just reading them today, and I was thinking how much fun it was to write them. And one of them was a 3-parter, and I had been aiming for the back of Red Book. They paid $7,000 for a novella, and I wrote Journey Back to Love. And Red Book's comment was, we found the heroine as boring as her husband had. And I laughed. I mean, what are you going to do? But England did it as a 3-parter. And I had the first part was the center of the magazine, which is big because you get both pages. And you see a sweet young thing weeping at the window. And it was Journey Back to Love by me. My name had never been bigger. And it was, can a woman lose her husband's love when she offers him tenderness, and obedience. And when my husband saw that, he said, I certainly wish you'd try.
On that note.
But I got such a kick out of reading it today. And you know what? I want to write some short stories.
Well, good, because I think you're great at them. And the questions from Crime Fiction Academy can wait. We're going to kidnap Mary for a little bit upstairs. But the rest of you, Mary's going to go in the back, sign books. So, you know, I say this every week, you know, you got to buy a book. It could be the last book. You know? And with Mary Higgins Clark's signature, it's like a really important last book.
That and 50 cents gets you on the subway.
Thank you so
Oh, is
much.
it true?